21 billionaires, one surname, one private company, zero public stock, zero annual reports, zero accountability to Wall Street. The Cargill-MacMillan family of Minnesota controls the largest private corporation in the United States, a company generating over $160 billion in annual revenue that has never once opened its books to the public. They are the most concentrated cluster of billionaires in a single family tree that Forbes has ever documented. And they are merely the apex of a state that has quietly produced more corporate dynasties per capita than almost any other in the Union. Minnesota gave the world Target, Best Buy, General Mills, Medtronic, and 3M. It sits at the headwaters of the Mississippi River, the commercial artery that built the American grain trade. Its twin cities are home to more Fortune 500 headquarters per capita than any metropolitan area in the country. Yet the families who forged these empires remain almost entirely invisible to the national conversation. Number 10. The Marvin Family. The Window Kings of the Wilderness. In 1912, George Marvin started a small lumber and hardware business in Warroad, Minnesota, a town so remote it sits directly on the Canadian border, closer to Winnipeg than to Minneapolis. His son, Bill Marvin, transformed the company into Marvin Windows and Doors, one of the largest window manufacturers in North America. The company built its reputation on made-to-order craftsmanship, producing custom windows that mass-market competitors could not replicate. Marvin Windows remains entirely family-owned and privately held after more than a century. The company employs over 5,500 people, making it the dominant employer in a region where the next nearest city of any size is hours away. In Warroad, the Marvin family is not just the largest business, they are the economy. The town's population of approximately 1,800 people exists in large part because the Marvin factory exists. The family has resisted every acquisition offer and every pressure to take the company public. Warroad is known as Hockeytown, USA, having produced an improbable number of Olympic hockey players for a town its size. The Marvin family funded much of the athletic infrastructure that made this possible. They proved that you do not need to be in a major city to build a manufacturing dynasty. You just need a product that architects and builders trust, a workforce you treat like family, and the stubbornness to stay private when everyone tells you to sell. Number 9. Bob Kiernan, the nut and bolt billionaire. In 1967, Bob Kiernan and 4 friends pooled their money to open a small fastener supply store in Winona, Minnesota, a Mississippi River town in the southeastern corner of the state. The company, Fastenal, sold nuts, bolts, screws, and industrial supplies to local contractors and manufacturers. There was no proprietary product, no patent, no technology, just a store that sold hardware. Fastenal grew from that single storefront into a nationwide network of over 3,500 locations, becoming the largest fastener distributor in North America. The company's market capitalization exceeds $35 billion. Kierlan's personal net worth is estimated at approximately $3.4 billion. Fastenal's competitive advantage is identical to its simplicity. A vending machine model that places automated dispensing units directly inside customer factories, allowing workers to access fasteners and tools on demand without leaving the production floor. Once a Fastenal vending machine is installed in a factory, switching costs become enormous. Bob Kiernan served as CEO while simultaneously serving in the Minnesota State Senate. He drove a used car, refused a reserved parking spot, and kept a frugal personal lifestyle that mirrored the company's lean operations. He built a $35 billion corporation selling the most mundane products in industrial commerce. Every bridge, every building, every piece of machinery in America is held together by fasteners. Kiernan simply decided to own the supply chain for all of them. Number 8. The Hubbard Family. The Broadcast Barons. Stanley S. Hubbard founded Hubbard Broadcasting in 1923, building KSTP in St. Paul into one of the most powerful broadcast stations in the upper Midwest. His son, Stanley E. Hubbard, expanded the empire and became one of the earliest advocates for direct broadcast satellite television. Hubbard was instrumental in the development of what became DirecTV, recognizing decades before the industry that television signals beamed directly from satellites to home dishes would eventually replace cable. The Hubbard family maintained private ownership of their broadcasting empire across 3 generations. Stanley E. Hubbard's net worth is estimated at approximately $3.8 billion. The family controls television and radio stations across multiple states while maintaining a fiercely independent editorial stance. In an era when local media has been consolidated into a handful of national chains, the Hubbards remain one of the last independent broadcast dynasties in the country. Stanley E. Hubbard was advocating for satellite television in the 1980s when most industry executives thought the concept was science fiction. He invested in the technology before there was a market for it. The Hubbard family proved that being early is only a disadvantage if you lack the patience to wait for the world to catch up. They had the patience and the satellites. Number 7. Glenn Taylor. The printing press to the NBA. Glenn Taylor grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota and in 1975 acquired a small wedding invitation printing company in North Mankato. He built it into Taylor Corporation, one of the largest privately held printing and communications companies in the United States, with over 12,000 employees and revenues exceeding $3 billion. His net worth is estimated at approximately $3.2 billion. Taylor purchased the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1994 when the franchise was on the verge of relocation. He kept the team in Minnesota for nearly 3 decades. In 2023, he sold the Timberwolves and the Lynx to a group led by Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry for approximately $1.5 billion. He also owns the Minnesota Star-Tribune, the state's largest newspaper, giving him influence over both sports and media in the Twin Cities. Glenn Taylor took a wedding invitation printer and built a multi-billion-dollar corporation, then used that fortune to save a professional basketball team from leaving the state and to purchase its largest newspaper. He operates from North Mankato, a town most Minnesotans would struggle to locate. His career demonstrates a distinctly Minnesotan approach to wealth. Build quietly, buy strategically, and never relocate to New York. Number 6. Richard Schultz. The stereo salesman who built Best Buy. In 1966, Richard Schultz opened a small electronics store called Sound of Music in St. Paul, Minnesota. After a tornado damaged the store in 1981, Schultz held a massive clearance sale in the parking lot, advertising Best Buys on damaged inventory. The sale was so successful that he renamed the entire company Best Buy and adopted a new business model: high volume, low margins, and massive superstores designed to overwhelm consumers with selection. Best Buy grew into the largest consumer electronics retailer in the United States, with over 1,000 stores and annual revenues exceeding $40 billion. Schultz's personal net worth is estimated at approximately $3.6 billion. When Amazon and online retailers threatened to destroy Best Buy through showrooming, the company executed one of the most improbable retail turnarounds in modern history under CEO Hubert Joly, price-matching Amazon and converting stores into fulfillment centers. Best Buy survived the retail apocalypse that killed Circuit City, Radio Shack, and dozens of other electronics chains. Richard Schultz named his company after a tornado. He turned a natural disaster into a brand identity. A parking lot clearance sale became the operating philosophy of a $40 billion corporation. Schultz understood something fundamental about American consumers. They want to touch electronics before they buy them. As long as that desire exists, Best Buy has a reason to exist. He bet on human behavior, not technology, and the bet is still paying. Number 5. The Carlson family. The stamp collectors who built a hotel empire. In 1938, Kurt Carlson started the Gold Bond Stamp Company in Minneapolis with a $55 loan. The concept was simple. Retailers gave customers trading stamps with purchases, and customers redeemed them for merchandise. It was a loyalty program before loyalty programs had a name. Carlson used the cash flows from Gold Bond to systematically acquire businesses across the hospitality and travel industries, building Carlson companies into a conglomerate that owned Radisson Hotels, TGI Fridays Restaurants, and Carlson Wagon Lit Travel. Kurt Carlson's daughter, Marilyn Carlson Nelson, took over the company and expanded the hotel portfolio into one of the largest in the world. The Carlson family fortune is estimated at approximately $4.5 billion. Radisson Hotels operates across nearly 120 countries. The family maintained private ownership throughout, never subjecting the company to the quarterly earnings pressure that drives public hospitality companies to cut costs at the expense of service quality. Kurt Carlson built a multi-billion-dollar global hospitality empire from a $55 trading stamp business. The logical distance between a gold bond stamp booklet and a Radisson hotel suite is enormous. But Carlson understood that both products serve the same psychological function. They make the customer feel rewarded. He simply scaled the reward from a toaster to a room with a view. Number 4. The Pohlad family. The banker's ballgame. Carl Pohlad was born in 1915 on a farm in rural Minnesota during the Depression. He began his career buying distressed businesses and bank loans at deep discounts during economic downturns. Through methodical acquisition and financial discipline, he built a banking and investment empire centered in Minneapolis. He purchased the Minnesota Twins in 1984, becoming one of the most prominent sports owners in the state's history. The Pohlad family fortune is estimated at approximately $4.8 billion. After Carl's death in 2009, his sons Jim, Bob, and Bill continued to manage the family's diversified portfolio through Pohlad companies, which encompasses banking, real estate, beverages, and professional sports. The family negotiated a new stadium for the Twins, Target Field, which opened in 2010, replacing the universally despised Metrodome for baseball. Carl Pohlad was controversial. He was accused of being cheap with Twins payroll, and in the early 2000s, he nearly allowed Major League Baseball to contract the franchise entirely. Yet he held on to the team, the stadium got built, and the Pohlad family's ownership of the Twins continued. The franchise is now worth over $1.3 billion, purchased for a fraction of that. Pohlad bought distressed assets his entire life. The Minnesota Twins may have been his best one. Number 3. The Dayton Family. The department store dynasty that built Target. In 1902, George Draper Dayton opened a dry goods store at the corner of Nicollet Avenue and 7th Street in downtown Minneapolis. Over the following decades, the Dayton family expanded the store into a chain of upscale department stores across the upper Midwest. The family became Minneapolis royalty, funding the arts, supporting civic causes, and establishing a model of corporate philanthropy that defined the Twin Cities' identity. In 1962, the Dayton family opened the first Target store in Roseville, Minnesota, entering the discount retail market. The name was chosen to differentiate the discount concept from the upscale Dayton's brand. Target grew explosively, eventually eclipsing the department store business entirely. In 2000, the company renamed itself Target Corporation. Today, Target operates over 1,900 stores across the United States with annual revenues exceeding $100 billion. The Dayton family's direct involvement has diminished over the decades, but the empire they launched remains the dominant retail brand in Minneapolis. Mark Dayton, a member of the family, served as governor of Minnesota from 2011 to 2019. The Dayton family did not just build a retail corporation. They built the civic infrastructure of Minneapolis itself. Dayton's department store was the anchor of the Nicollet Mall. The family's philanthropy funded the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Guthrie Theater, and numerous educational institutions. They created Target and then used the profits to build the cultural identity of the city where the company was born. Number 2. The Pillsbury family. The flour barons of Minneapolis. In 1869, Charles Alfred Pillsbury purchased a 1/3 interest in a small Minneapolis flour mill and began transforming it into one of the largest flour milling operations in the world. Minneapolis sat at the confluence of the Mississippi River and vast wheat-growing regions, giving it a natural advantage as a grain processing hub. Pillsbury exploited this geography ruthlessly, building massive mills along the Falls of St. Anthony that turned raw wheat into refined flour on an industrial scale. The Pillsbury Company became one of the most recognized food brands in American history, producing flour, baking products, and eventually a vast portfolio of consumer food items. The Pillsbury Doughboy, introduced in 1965, became one of the most enduring advertising mascots in the food industry. The company was acquired by Grand Metropolitan in 1989 for $5.7 billion, and the Pillsbury brand is now owned by General Mills, the company's historic rival. The founding family's direct wealth has been distributed across generations, but their legacy is embedded in the physical and economic infrastructure of Minneapolis. Minneapolis became the flour milling capital of the world because of two families, the Pillsburys and the Washburns. These dynasties engaged in a fierce commercial rivalry that drove both companies to innovate relentlessly, building ever larger and more efficient mills. The rivalry produced gold medal flour, Pillsbury Best, and the entire modern baking products industry. The city of Minneapolis exists in its current form because two families decided to grind wheat faster and cheaper than anyone else on Earth. Number 1. The Cargill-MacMillan Dynasty, 21 billionaires. 0 public shares. In 1865, William Wallace Cargill built a single-grain flathouse in Conover, Iowa, storing wheat for local farmers. He gradually expanded along Midwestern rail lines, buying grain storage facilities across Minnesota, Iowa, and the Dakotas. When he died in 1909, his son-in-law, John Hugh McMillan, took control of the company and began transforming it from a regional grain trader into a global agricultural powerhouse. The Cargill and McMillan families merged their bloodlines and their fortunes into a single dynasty that would become the most private concentration of wealth in American history. Cargill Incorporated is the largest privately held company in the United States, generating over $160 billion in annual revenue. The company operates across 70 countries, trading, processing, and distributing grain, oilseeds, livestock, cocoa, sugar, palm oil, and dozens of other agricultural commodities. They are one of the ABCD companies that collectively control approximately 70 to 90% of the global grain trade. The Cargill-MacMillan family owns approximately 88% of the company. Forbes counts at least 21 individual billionaires within the family, with a combined estimated wealth exceeding $60 billion. They have never taken the company public. They have never sold equity to outside investors. They have never opened their books to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Cargill-MacMillan family has maintained majority control of the same company for over 160 years, spanning 6 generations. In an era when most family businesses are sold, taken public, or diluted within 3 generations, the Cargill-MacMillans have defied every statistical norm of dynastic wealth preservation. They did so through strategic intermarriage between the 2 family lines, through strict governance rules that limit family members' ability to sell their shares, and through a corporate culture that treats privacy as an existential value. They do not give interviews. They do not appear on magazine covers. They do not attend industry conferences. They are the wealthiest family that most Americans have never heard of, and they are responsible for an enormous percentage of the food that reaches your table every single day. In 2023, Cargill reported revenues of $177 billion. The company employs approximately 160,000 people worldwide. If Cargill were publicly traded, it would rank among the 10 largest companies in the United States by revenue, ahead of Alphabet, Meta, and JP Morgan Chase. But it is not public. It belongs to a family. And that family has decided that the world does not need to know how much they earn, how much they spend, or how they make their decisions. In Minnesota and in the global agricultural economy, the Cargill-MacMillans do not just participate, they preside. Minnesota is not just the land of 10,000 lakes. It is the headquarters of 10,000 fortunes built on grain, retail, electronics, broadcasting, and the quiet machinery of American commerce. From the trading stamp salesman who built a global hotel empire, to the tornado survivor who named his company after a parking lot sale, to the 21 billionaires who have never once opened their books to the public, Minnesota's dynasties share a common trait. They build silently, hold privately, and expand relentlessly. Which Minnesota dynasty holds the most absolute power? The family behind Target or the family behind your food supply? Let us know below. Subscribe to Global Status. We follow the money into the quiet places where it grows the fastest.